Hi, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live Pride Week. My name is Sen Lagos. I will be your host today. We are on day 2 with Toren Reaves, and we're going to be continuing our project from yesterday. So join in the chat, and you're welcome to ask questions and also give us feedback because we love feedback. It's a community event. Let's see who is on at the moment. I think Sean and Sam, welcome. Join us on the chat. Say hello. Don't be shy. And I'm going to turn it over to Toren. Toren, can you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about what your project will be today?
Yeah, so thank you again so much for hosting me not just one day, but 2 days in a row. Nonetheless, I really appreciate it. Can't tell you how grateful I am for the spotlight. I started a tiny little content design company back in 2020, right when lockdowns hit my hometown of Rochester, New York. And since then, things have kind of taken off, and I started like a tiny apparel brand, like kind of as like a subsidiary of my overall brand, because I was designing apparel and doing graphic work for a couple of other brands and just caught the bug. And so this year, to celebrate the fall, or rather the summer 22 collection, I went back to my hometown, or my home street, and did some photography, which we're going to be editing a little bit more today. I feel bad. Yesterday I was so into the conversation, I legit forgot to edit. So I definitely want to share some insights on a technical basis. But yeah, we're going to be doing that, and then importing some stuff into Creative Cloud Express and doing some branding work in there. Then if we have time, maybe some InDesign stuff, or maybe play around in Illustrator a little bit as well.
That's wonderful. I mean, we can still watch the replay. I think what we did yesterday was still phenomenal. We had a really insightful conversation on the behind the scenes of your work, and also the train of thoughts that go into your work. And I think that in itself is a bunch of golden nuggets. So if you want to watch the replay, you can watch it on Behance and on YouTube. So hi again to all the YouTube community out there too. Join us in the chat and say hello along the way.
So yeah, I'm actually going to pull up Lightroom again. I have the deck from yesterday, just kind of like highlighting a little bit more about me. Again, for those who are just joining or didn't get a chance to pop in yesterday, I'm from Rochester, New York, and I went to I was very fortunate to go to a private school, because here in Rochester, the Rochester City School District is not the greatest, to say the least, and the graduation rate in the city of Rochester is like less than 60%. But if you go sometimes just as far as 2 miles to the suburban public schools, the graduation rate, I think on average, is like 98%. And again, like there are schools that are literally on the same street, not 3 miles apart, that have a disparity in graduation rate of like 40%. And so going to the school that I went to, I feel very fortunate. But when I graduated from college in 2010 and I started doing work as an adult education specialist, it really hit me just how lucky I was, because there were kids who I thought were every bit as talented and smart, and if not smarter than I was, who were not afforded the same luxury of education. And it's stuck with me this entire time. So everything I do is kind of informed by those years as a teacher. And now that I'm designing, like I really want to make sure that I'm spotlighting and the best light possible where I came from. And part of that project is going to my street, or in the house that I grew up on, Thurston, which has a pretty awful reputation. And I never felt like it was fair, because I had so many great memories there. And that was the kernel idea for today's project. And so with my apparel brand, with any business, staying afloat through this pandemic is something that people should be proud of. And that I started a business the day lockdowns went into effect, and have somehow managed to keep the lights on all this time is something that I don't take for granted. And so for this project, I wanted to kind of pass the baton between collections, where I was highlighting the clothes from the last couple of seasons by having the model here, Lex, wearing clothes that were weathered. Like I trained in that t-shirt. That's literally my shirt. And all the clothes that she wears have had at least a year of distress kind of go into them. And so I thought that would be a cool way to show that I'm evolving a little bit and that there is a little bit of not legacy, because it's legit been 2 years, but that there's a little bit of life that's been lived through this apparel and this brand, and I'm so grateful. So I'm kind of checking a few boxes all at once with this project. But yesterday, I think I spent a lot of time and focus just kind of going into the thought process behind the project, but I definitely would like to get a little bit more into the weeds on a technical level with more about how I select photos and then how I color correct them, or how I do the color treatments here in Lightroom.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Okay.
So it's so interesting because actually just today I was looking at some of the shirts at my my local coffee shop, which it's
Okay.
I'm super addicted to that place. They have these apparels with their brands, and some of the clothes are actually distressed also on purpose. And I was like, oh, I don't know, you kind of made me more aware of that. And that was kind of like, and I overlooked it before, I think. So really interesting.
Yeah, no, I've never sold anything that was intentionally distressed. But when I launched my apparel brand, like I came out with a shirt called Quiet Thirst and Blossom, which I think was was this t-shirt, and I literally just had 50 made, and then had 50 boxes made as well, and I just handed them out to friends and family who had been so supportive of me just starting out. And then when people started asking me like, hey, do you have any more of those? I was like, I can't keep giving these out for free because I just can't afford it. So I did a second run of sweatshirts, which I actually did just hand out to a wider group of friends and family. And then after that, the demand was pretty high. And so I was like, okay, there's something here. There's some interest. And I launched a little apparel brand, and it's extremely humble, but there's so much passion that goes into all of it. And one of my favorite feelings as an apparel designer, this might be my favorite unexpected feeling, period. But when people tag me in like wearing my apparel or the apparel I designed, or tag the brand I designed it for and don't know where it came from, like I am obsessed with that feeling. It's the coolest thing ever. And like I had somebody tag me from somewhere in Italy, I can't remember where exactly, but I had a t-shirt with like a vaporwave version of my face on it, and I was like, that's so weird that I'm like polluting the streets of Venice with my likeness, but how cool the thought that the reach is there. So
you got to document those. Those are interesting little bits that I think as you grow, you're going to be able to look back on and just appreciate it that much more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do have like a little glossary of like immediate friends who have tagged me in posts, but no, you're absolutely right. I need to like go through and every time that's happened, save those. But I think yesterday you and I spoke about kind of using presets as like a launching point. And I think I got a little tripped up because I'm fortunate enough to have a dual monitor display, and one monitor was displaying things with a different sort of color value with saturation in particular. And then the one I like to work on that's closer to me was much more desaturated. But today I'm going to try my absolute best to focus on just one screen and not trip over my own shoelaces with this. But I think that we liked some of the warmer presets, and this is one called Westfall, which is from a photo shoot I did of some of the a sweatshirt that I launched last year on Westfall Road in Rochester, and I just kind of stumbled into this one, and I think I love what it's doing with Lex in particular, but with the background, the sky in particular, it's a little too blue, but I do love these blue sort of tones to the shadows. I don't know if that's coming through on the stream, but one tool that we talked about yesterday was using the subject select. I love it. I think usually, like, even if I want to change the sky or that color in particular, a lot of times I end up doing subject select and then I'll invert it. Because sometimes it's weird to me to just have like one patch have a different set of values. So I'll do the subject select, and then I'll go over to this ellipses and do invert, and then we get everything else. And you can toggle the show overlay so that's always on, and you get this nice sort of semi-transparent red. And I think it's so useful because sometimes in this little icon, it can be tough to tell like at a granular level what is or isn't highlighted. Especially if there's feathering like in this, it doesn't make too much of a difference because the skateboard is black and white, but I still wouldn't necessarily want it to be desaturated because it's in the foreground of the photo. So I'll probably go through and subtract using the brush. And I love whatever setting I have for the feathering. I think I have a 68. That just works for me because I am the sloppiest. You should see me play video games on Twitch sometimes. Like, I'm the worst. I have no clue what I'm doing with this mouse. And I'm very, I need to get one of those little drawing stations where you have like the stylus.
Yeah, the pen tool, the interest pads. Yeah.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do have one. I actually keep it at my office because lately we've been doing a lot of masking, and I've been using this quite a bit, but in Photoshop actually, because it was sort of born in Photoshop first. Once it was adapted into Lightroom, I was like, yes, amazing. Yeah, and I get like really in a trance and just like zooming in there, erasing, adding, and once it happens, it's like it's almost better than the pen tool, in my opinion. Yeah, so it's really nice. I listened to a nice podcast.
Oh yeah, no, I love doing that.
or Adobe Live.
A good Adobe Live, yeah, that's great. Did you find that there was like a skill curve with the pen? Like, I'm nervous that I'll go and I'll buy one and then I'll get it and I'll be even worse with it because I don't know what I'm doing.
I would say no. Well, with the actual pen itself, I wouldn't say that it's that difficult to use it. It feels more ergonomic. Maybe in long hauls, like, we often work with like just on projects for several hours. Your hand, you need to stretch it because it's just in that position all the time. So it's a bit, I guess it's the equivalent of a mouse. That's not normal to have your hand like a claw.
No.
Yeah. So it's nice to kind of take breaks from it. I would say that's the only thing. Otherwise, it's like drawing. It's really more intuitive.
I'm on my best behavior today. I went to my chiropractor and they're like, how far away do you sit from your desk? And I'm like, I do this most of the time. They're like, please, like, for the love of all things holy, don't do that because it's so bad for you. But normally I'm chilling. Yeah.
I was going to say also, I don't know if you have this as an alternative, of anybody in the chat has this as an alternative, but using Adobe Lightroom on your iPad is really cool. I mean, as soon as they said the word intuitive, it made me think of that because obviously if you have the pen tool there, it just translates a lot more because you're looking at it like a paper. So you can use Lightroom on your iPad and it has the same features. I'm going to say there's a few features that are actually additional in the iPad. So you get to have a different experience there. It seems a little bit more intuitive sometimes, even as you're editing the color palettes, racing the levels of the graph, you get to do it directly on the screen. And it feels really, really nice. It's like a different workflow. I welcome you to try that if you have an opportunity, if you have the tool, maybe borrow it. Give it a chance.
No, I definitely need to grab an iPad. I love the new, what is it with like the M1 chip? They just seem so fast. I'm very envious of people who have it. Yeah.
Actually, I got it right when it launched, and then Adobe wasn't necessarily up to par with like all the updates yet. So it was the weirdest thing to have an expensive computer with just for emails. For like a month, and then finally it was like, oh, this is what I use it for, Adobe Creative Cloud, and they were just awesome. I mean, you see the difference because when it wasn't compatible, it was like not it, but now it's like really, really fast, especially for workflows like photography.
I can't even imagine what's like when you're exporting, what's that pace like?
Well, it depends also because that kind of pertains to your internet. Right. So like, because if you're storing stuff on the cloud and things like that, Lightroom works with the Adobe Creative Cloud. So that's really useful because you have backups. But it's also your internet. I've learned really, really quickly with live streaming to have fast internet. So that's been a nice lesson. Cecile here is saying hi, and Jack too. Thank you for joining us, NAF Creative. And they say, blew up a planet and made a dragonfly this week. Whoa. You have a cool string of projects here. Blew up a planet and made a dragonfly this week. I hope that's illustrations.
Yeah.
I just started. I've been watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, so like she
Oh,
says
how do you
that, I'm
like
like,
it?
oh, it's possible. I'm obsessed. I watched the last episode yesterday, really late at night. I just had to. We
Oh
had to, I
man,
think.
I have not seen it.
Sounds. Yeah, really. Oh, you have to. You have to.
I'm like the worst at like following seasons of shows. Like even if I really like it, I'll go, oh, okay, I watched 2 episodes today, and then my mind is just off, and I'm really bad at getting back to stuff. So sometimes like I'm like reluctant to start it because I don't want that heartbreak. Like I loved what I watched of Moon Knight. I watched the first few episodes, and I love Oscar Isaac. He's so handsome, and yeah, I have not finished it yet, and I know the series is done. Mm.
Do you often, I just saw you hover over the effects panel. Do you use that often to like kind of give it we were talking about nostalgic looks yesterday. So I'm
Yeah,
curious if you use
yeah, for
that.
sure. I definitely use grain a lot, especially for this project where I want it to look a little bit more aged. Sometimes I'll play around with like the dehaze just to kind of give it like, especially like that kind of hot summer, like you can almost hear the cicadas, like if you have a little bit of dehaze going. I almost never have a vignette. I don't know why. I feel like aesthetically, I've just never kind of leaned into
Usually
that.
get
I
rid
feel
of
like,
it, if anything.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, my mom took me to like one of those like old timey photo places where I was dressed up like a cowboy, and they just like stamp on a vignette onto the photos, and that's like the only picture of me that has it. I feel like it's like a lithograph or whatever those are called.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
guess if you were
not too big
attempting
a
to do
fan.
that stylistic, like, hey, it's photo day at school, then maybe there you go. You have that
Yeah,
option there.
but some
I
people
mean,
are
there's
really good at making use of it. And I just
yeah,
don't have that talent.
yeah. I think like
Uh,
it's a very stylistic choice. I'm gonna say not so much like correcting. Oh, I guess it could be a correcting a file because if you have a lot of um, the distortion in your lens, you could improve it a
mm.
little bit with those edges. Yeah, that could be another use.
So we're gonna cheat here again. I'm from Thurston Road, literally like right around the corner from where this photo was taken. So I definitely want to spotlight that a little bit more because it's kind of lost a bit with the shade. So I'll use like the brush tool here and just kind of gently go over making a mask here. But yeah, I'm such a fan of this tool. It's really awesome. And yeah, we'll just kind of make this a little bit more filled in. And then from here, I might just give it a little bit of that. And we'll see what that looks like when we pop out. It's so funny sometimes when you're editing a photo, like you'll get, like you said, like right in the weeds of like doing something like really up close, like you're zoomed in times like 300%, and then you pop out of it and you're like, whoa, that looks so weird. So I'm always trying to like pop in and out and pop in and out. And then of course, if you're working on like a traditional desktop screen or you have like a larger format display, it can like, at least I'm very vulnerable with this, where I'll forget like what is this going to look like on a phone, which is where most of my stuff lives and breathes.
Mhm.
And so there have been photos that I'm absolutely in love with on like a 65-inch display, and then on something smaller, it just, that grandeur doesn't translate as well, and that always breaks my little heart. But I'm really loving
Yeah.
this color scheme. I am torn right now stylistically if I want to kind of enhance like her own brightness, and I might, but I kind of like that there's shadow here. It's really tough. Like I'm always thinking in terms of like, what have I seen a lot of in my social feeds, and how can I fill a gap that I perceive is there? So like if I'm seeing a lot of like really, really well lit or very bright subjects, sometimes just to be contrarian, I will go, okay, well, let's see if I can't solve this problem in another means. But again, Lex is she's really awesome. This model here, and I don't want I don't think I could diminish her if I even tried, but I definitely want to be mindful of how I'm highlighting her, but I'm so grateful for this photo. Like, I can't tell you just how wild it is that I have the opportunity to do something like this. I am a little bothered though by this detail here with all of the leaves in the background. I'm wondering what did I do here to make that happen? And is it a result of the texture being too high? Should I lower it? No, there's something funny
What
going
is it?
on
The
there.
leaves?
Yeah, they have this weird sort of black outline, and I wonder if I did something with the luminance of
Yeah, that's usually the case, or the
aqua.
green. The green color is a little bit pushed.
Yeah.
You can also use the target select tool. You see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can start to kind of test.
That's so insightful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites actually on the iPad, because it's so cool to just like drag it. Right? It's like the actually intuitive dragging.
Yeah. It's so funny sometimes too, like especially being like sometimes I'll stand in as a model in air quotes, and if I'm doing the coloring on my own photos, if I use the target tool on like myself, it's so interesting to see what the computer thinks I am color wise, like out of the ones here. It's like, oh, okay, I always kind of fall into the orange camp, which I think is both unfortunate and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, I love the color orange, and to be able to have the color orange on somebody that also is wearing, I mean, somebody wearing color orange, or it's in the environment, and then your skin color, it can get tricky for the computer to differentiate the two. So oftentimes I resort to the target tool or the masking, which you just showcased earlier, because it does then help me isolate those areas. Yeah, it's all about isolating and kind of targeting each specific thing, whether it's like, oh, the red hues within the skin, or the orange within the skin, or like the highlights. It'll allow you to kind of make those decisions a little bit more subtly.
Yeah. So I'm loving this one as well. Sometimes, again, because I'll have things, I'll do so many posts on like IG stories where I think the aspect ratio is like 9:16 or 16:9, one of the two, where it's really narrow. Like if I'm really in love with like a certain pose when I'm taking photos, I literally will just try to double it up, where I'll have like one wide shot or like the landscape mode, and like another in portrait, just to make sure, because there have been so many times where like I love what I shot in landscape, and then when I go to put as a story, I lose so much of what I loved about it because of that aspect ratio. It's heartbreaking every time that happens.
So many hearts have been broken over that, because it's like the continuous, and I always claim like all they have to do is make it so that it's really the program Instagram. So when you turn it landscape, it will turn also landscape. And so you're able to witness like a good, beautiful landscape photo. How many landscape photos are out there that are truly like, the subject matter is actually nature, and you're just missing out because it has to be a vertical to take up the space of our devices. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Definitely. I definitely keep a copy if I were you, because it's the horizontal version. If that's your go-to, keep a copy of that one.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah, that's great advice. So I'm loving these two. So I'll make a point to use these. I know that yesterday we did have this one, that this feels much more like vintage, just because of the high amount of grain and how desaturated it is. So I love the framing here, but I think what I'm hoping to do, this is kind of working out a little bit better for me. I'm trying to be very disciplined and not look at the other screen. There is something going on though with the shadows having a little bit too much blue for me, and sometimes that kind of takes me out of it. But again, I don't know how it's going to display on a certain device. But actually it's saying that the shadows don't have that. Let's do a little bit more blending. I love this tool. Like sometimes I'll go, okay, like I love these shadows kind of having a wisp of blue, or I like the midtones kind of having like a lime green undertone, like the Matrix or something like that. But then it kind of separates everything a little bit too much. Like you get those lines where the transitions are kind of harsh between shadows, midtones, and highlights. And then being able to just blend and balance really easily here is such a nice little feature. And I love what it's doing to the skateboard and your shoes. You're kind of, at least on my screen, you're getting that kind of summer like hum of like the warmth in the photo, which is really important to me. I was sharing yesterday that Rochester has an 11-month winter. It just like it's so awful. So I love summer so much. Like when we do have warm weather, it means so much to me, and so I definitely want to capture that. You know, with the photos that I took that day for this particular project.
Celise says, great use of the golden rule on the subject position. Was this with intent? So the golden rule is often reflected on the cropping module.
So as I was sharing yesterday and a little bit today, I'm completely self-taught, and I've only been doing photography now professionally for 2 years. And when I started, it was with literally my cell phone and then Lightroom on mobile. And then once I got enough kind of clients running, I was able to pick up the Sony. I think it's the RX100. It's like a little point and shoot, very tiny, but I used that for like a year, and I love those images a lot. And then I graduated to the Alpha 7, and then for this photo shoot, it's the very first time I've turned off like all the little like driving assists. So I had manual focus on, and I was doing my own white balance and my own aperture setting, which was kind of nerve-wracking for me because I knew the stage would be pretty big, at least for me. But as far as like golden rule or stuff like that, like I have no clue. Like my barometer for like what makes a photo work is if it's compelling to me. That's it. Like if there's something in there that I dig, like to me, that's it. And if it isn't there, then I'll just kind of keep playing with it until I can get it. And then sometimes I have to leave a project and then I'll come back to it in 3 or 4 months when I feel like I've leveled up a little bit, or maybe I've had some time away and to kind of cool off, and then, you know, I'll reapproach it. But no, it was not intentional to be concise.
I mean, it's often surprising how we land on these rules or these like technical specs that have been working out for maybe a very long time, but you arrive at it on your own journey. You just like, you know, you figure it out. For a few references, there is a few different types of I guess guidelines within the cropping dialogue. So if you go to the cropping, I think in here underneath crop overlay, you'll find the golden ratio, just in case if you want to start playing with it and experimenting.
That's so cool.
So you can find, you know, the rule of thirds, which is fairly popular in general. I think just you know,
where is it?
Within the crop, I think it's underneath crop overlay. You see beneath the little bars.
Golden ratio.
Yes, and it says golden ratio. So that's kind of cool. It gives you different options.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it gives you different options to play with.
That's really dope. I had no idea.
Yeah, really funny to learn these terms within the program. I mean, that happened to me like by accident too, just like playing with Photoshop and learning about the burning tool and burning and dodging. As it turns out, people used to do that, still do that with film, right? They burn and dodge certain areas, but like physically. And these are terms that were adopted to kind of keep the continuity, which I really respect. That's still involved. So we still have some kind of remnants of like the way like the craft is led. Even though we have technology, you know, it doesn't need to be different from each other.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how important the nomenclature for techniques is. Like one of the biggest hurdles that I was clearing, especially at the start, was I didn't know the names of the techniques I was looking up in Google. So like I had a client ask me one time, they're like, hey, I just want like a circle but with the photo in the circle and then nothing behind the circle. And I spent forever Googling, like, how do I, like, it's so hard to get down. And then you learn like a
That
clipping
sounds like a
mask.
riddle.
Yeah, but it was like, it took me forever. But once you know that term, you're like, okay, like now I'm starting to learn this rhetoric that other designers use. So I can kind of, like, the next time I have a problem, I can start 3 hours ahead, like just learning what it's called and then learning how to do it can be a pretty big hurdle, especially if you have no background in it whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think there were a couple of her sitting on the stool in the middle of the street that I really, really do. Like, I love this, even though the color treatment is much different. I think I have, I'm just going to duplicate this and then see what it looks like with the settings.
Silly says 300
There.
years artists have used this and have found it just like us. Yeah, it's almost always feels visually better. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
little guidelines we get to create like that visual sensibility of beauty. If that can be ever kind of put into a box, ever. That's always subjective, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, I
Or
think,
it's
oh no, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, or like you said yesterday, it's a good guide to then break the rules for.
Yeah, and for me, like, sometimes I like little bits and pieces of a composition that like bother me, like annoy me, like 1%. And so sometimes like it's like where I put the graphic. I think I used as an example yesterday, and we'll probably see more of that today with what we're doing. But yeah, because I really don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes you stumble into things, and other times you kind of I'll do a lot of heavy lifting to solve the problem in a different way. But once I stopped thinking about what I was working on in terms of being good or bad, and just like, is this compelling in some way? Does this speak to me in some way? Then that losing that dichotomy of how I approached my thought process or how I judged my work, and had like a much more linear scope to define something's success. I felt very liberated to just try new stuff, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's always helpful
Um,
to kind of have some guidelines or sometimes not at all.
yeah, and I think I'm fortunate because a lot of the work, especially for this project, it's like, well, I'm my own boss, so like I don't have to impress anybody but me, which is nice. But sometimes you'll have a client that like has very specific requests, and they're also very savvy, and so I'll always acquiesce, if it's for or on the behalf of a client. But if it's just me, I feel much more inclined to just mess around a little bit. But yeah, I'm definitely loving some of these for sure, and I love this one. She's just duplicate this as well, and we talked about this one yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say, if you're just joining us, we are working on editing photos on Adobe Lightroom with Toren. And if you stick around towards the end, we're going to be spotlighting an artist today. So that's super exciting. I always love doing these.
Yeah, I'm very excited to spotlight. I think there was a bunch of photos of her in the college crop that I had. And again, like we talked about Lex yesterday, like she's so on all the time that like I think my favorite photos of her are like the ones that are more candid, where she's just like in between doing things. Like she's so good at, like, she'll just entertain herself or start laughing about something. And we've got such a good rapport because we've worked on a number of projects together, and she's been so generous with her time and her likeness when it comes towards this sort of work. And I don't take it for granted, but we'll have these moments where I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just pressing the shutter button while she's, off being incredible.
Yeah, I love the authenticity of just also picking a friend of yours to be able to evolve into the brand, and it's like authentic to the location, authentic to the narrative. It just shows as something more unique when you keep that in the forefront.
Yeah, I think all the best work I've done is with people who I'm pretty close to, or kind of click, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna be chill pretty soon, because I think that there's so much trust involved when you're taking photos of somebody. And I think that there's like an inherent level of some sort of kind of compatibility. I've been fortunate enough where I have stood in as a model. Like I've never worked with anybody who I didn't gel with. And so I try to, at least to the best of my ability, do the same with the people I work with. Now, are you also doing photography as well? I know that you do graphic design, but do you take your own photos?
Yeah, I actually started doing street photography. That's why I'm so like in awe of your work, because it's very urban and has that
Well,
aesthetic of like
thank you so
abandoned
much.
locations. Yeah. Yeah, it's things that also draw my interest. But I'm very much a chameleon. So I've ended up doing a little bit of everything along the way, almost as a search to like refine my craftsmanship. So it didn't really matter to me if my subject was so for a time there, I did a lot of hospitality. So my subject would be like food or models and things a little bit with a narrative that was more pre, I guess, pre-created as opposed to found,
Yeah.
which is something we were talking about yesterday. So it's interesting to kind of put yourself in that space and say, well, let me refine my craftsmanship. Why not? I have a camera in hand. And I learned so much from that. It's very humbling to try to photograph food or nature or things like that, where like you feel like a novice all over again, or you can't really direct those things because they're inanimate objects. I mean, you can actually argue that nature has a lot of life, but still, nonetheless, I cannot tell it what to do. So it's really humbling. So when I go back to the thing that I do like to do, I'm able to kind of let go of that and say, well, I'm going to photograph this if this is meant to be. And so street photography is one of my favorite things to do. So I really admire your work in that end. It's like,
Oh, wow. Thank you
nice.
so much. No, I think food photography in particular is going to be so difficult because you want to put your own spin on it, but you also need to like make things look appetizing, and that's got to be really, really tough. I don't think I've done any food
Yeah.
photography for any client.
Actually, I would say that the challenging part is actually a little bit of what you're talking about today is the element of branding it and marketing it,
Mm,
because I would work with several clients. So each time I wouldn't necessarily photograph it in my way. I would photograph it in the way that it would be fitting to the personality of the brand. So having
mm,
that graphic design background helped me assess that with a higher sensibility to
yeah.
differentiate. So no two clients would look identical, because otherwise, what's the point? There would be competing, right? So um, yeah, that's kind of cool because we all go through this facet of marketing. And I think that's going to be really interesting for you to show a little insight on. Because for me, like, we're artists. I've learned to differentiate that we're artists and we're also, um, my dog said hello just then. Um,
Hey, what's your dog's name?
Toby One Kenobi.
Oh, okay. So you're like a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, this is a Star Wars household for sure.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's awesome. What was did
Yeah.
you so when you approached it for the first time, like what was the first movie you watched? Because I remember my dad brought home from the library Return of the Jedi, and that's where I started. But I'm always curious to see like what was your entry point.
I think it was, well, I was really like unaware of it, um, outside of the cultural references. So since became, and I would say like I'm more new into this whole thing, but when I became interested in film, I started to just give myself the task to learn any film, especially older films, and
Mm,
try to educate myself through that. So I accepted the challenge, my wife's challenge, to watch the entire series or the entire set of movies. And she was very keen on letting me know this, you have to start a certain order. This is really important. And I was like, it was very confusing because a certain order meant the older movies. So,
mm.
anyways, I think it was A New Hope, the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
four. Yeah,
nailed it. Yeah, so
yeah.
I think we're gonna probably rewatch that because of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I almost called him Toby. But yes, it's really interesting, like how many resources, like references or inspirations you can get to bring back into your own work sometimes. I mean, I'm referring to film, but sometimes you could just look at film and bring back that aesthetic into a filter in an image. And that's super fun too, to like, I know you had a reference picture yesterday. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I'll have to pull it back up. I think it's, yeah, right here. And this is another project I'm excited for if we have time for it today. But
hi, Mick. Mick is saying Toby won Kenobi. Oh my God.
But yeah, so this is a photo of me. I'm trying to guess. I was probably 10. So this is maybe 98, 97. I might be a little bit younger. But right outside my house on Thurston. And we had this beautiful like rose bushes, all thorns. It looked very pretty, but it was not the plein air. But yeah, this is me in the front yard. And this was kind of the reference photo that I wanted to lean on a little bit, if not to get the exact same colors, but kind of the vibe. Like I think we spoke about it yesterday, where like I'm totally comfortable with designing away from something, and that kind of happened to me like begrudgingly. I don't know what your journey was like with design, but I remember like when I started, I'd be like, oh, like I want, like I screenshot like a picture of a hat that I love. It's like, I want a hat that does what this hat does. And it took me a while to realize like, well, what that hat does, the one that I'm referencing, has already been done. Like, I'll never do it better than the thing that it originates from. So let me do my own thing. Like that hat, if it's an orange hat with like a black logo, like that is doing exactly it at its top level. And if whatever I do will always be at least 1% worse. And if I pursue that, it's going to drive me crazy. So let me use that feeling that I had when I looked at it as a launching point, and just design further and further away from it. And whatever gets my creativity going, like that's the gift.
I love that.
Yeah. So but it took me a while to get there. And same with photos. Like there are so many photo accounts I follow on either Instagram or Behance, and I'm like, man, like I love what they're doing with colors here. And one thing in particular, like that I see with photography of Black models, is some of them do such a great job of getting that hue of the skin right, and then the texture. And for some reason, that seems to be like a set of techniques that kind of I'm always chasing. And I feel like I haven't quite gotten there in my own work. And it can make it tough. But they say, like, you know, comparison is the what's it, like the theft of all joy or something like that. Yeah. So it's like something I try not to compare too much. Yeah.
I'm not very good at idioms, but yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but that's a good standard to have. Like say, oh, okay, well, this is where I'm at in terms of my editing style. And I have a goal to maybe accomplish these different standards for, you know, skin color, or sometimes it could be in general for how to accomplish a certain mood or how to accomplish certain genre. I feel like at times one of my biggest asks would be like, if it has to be with clothes. I had a clothes company once. It was about the visibility of the clothes. Like the clothes had to be super visible, right? And it was like, you know, we have to showcase them. And I thought that was cool. And then one day I saw like a shadow, and I just like, oh, I need to take a picture of the shadow, and I want a subject. So I went like a rogue on my shot list, and I photographed that shadow, and you know, the client loved it, and the clothes was not visible, not really. It was there, it was a part of it, but it was that mood, that stark mood that everybody felt in the room. So it was kind of, it taught me a big lesson on how like you can have a standard and then just like that, let it go. I think some standards are there to stay though, because the part of the skin color, I think is that one hasn't been established at all. So let's make it a thing, right? Because
no, of course. No, it's funny, like working with other apparel brands too. Like, you know, one thing I'm guilty of sometimes is like there are basic shots I think every apparel brand wants. Like they'll be like, okay, like we're highlighting the tag on the back of the shirt or this aspect of the garment. And for me, when I'm in like just kind of discover a beautiful moment mode, I can like that is in the back of my mind sometimes. So there have definitely been a few shoots where I like was packing. I was like, oh wait, I actually didn't ever get the back of this shirt like whatsoever. Let's unpack for a second and spend some time doing that. But yeah, it can be tough. But for my own stuff, I feel much more obliged to just go, okay, we'll look and feel. There is oh no, we did get her in this yesterday. This was a version of that Quiet Thirst and Blossom long sleeve that I had. And for some reason, this shirt's been around for like a year and I just never did like a shoot with it. I never really focused in on it with any production before. So it's really cool now that I do it for the first time with Lex and the version that I had made for myself and have lived and trained in for over a year.
When you export, I have a question. When you export, do you export directly to the cloud, like to work on, I think Adobe Express, right? Or InDesign? Do you like share things on the library? I don't know, like what's kind of your workflow there? Or
it
do
depends
you just, like,
on, oh no, it's a great question.
Computer.
So it depends on how many photos I have. Some, like if it's just one, I'll go right to, like I'll have it in the cloud library and then access it directly from the web browser. If I have a ton of photos, sometimes because I have things so like meticulously organized in folders, when you go through Creative Cloud Express and you go into like the Lightroom portion, at least I haven't figured out a way to select multiple photos at once. So like going through that same like file path every time for like 10 photos in a row, my ADHD is such where I cannot. So I'll just you'll see I'll like put 10 photos into the same project and then just change the order of the layers because I like having like a more iterative approach. But no, it's a great question. It varies from time to time. But I'm trying to see, is there anything else? Oh, this is awesome because I think this is a bit closer and we can get a little bit more of that lived in texture on this photo in particular. But yeah, Lex she's a superhero and I'm very fortunate to have met her at all, and that she's willing to collaborate on things is extremely humbling for me. Yeah, she has like the best tattoo placements and I don't want that to be lost here. So I will do a little bit of cheating to just kind of lower the whites or the highlights just here, just a little, so that we can still get this tattoo in just a little bit. I don't want to lower it too much. What happens if I do that? Oh, that works just fine for me. And then maybe have a little bit less contrast, a little bit more. Yeah. She has these awesome, I think it's on her right hand. She's got the number 7 tattooed 3 times on, I think, her middle finger and then her pinky and then her ring finger. And there are times where I think on photos towards the end where she's holding the shirt where it just looks awesome.
I dig brands that showcase tattoos because this is such a nice I don't know, it's been so frowned upon for so long. Like having to remove things like that, like Photoshop them. And it's no, I don't want to Photoshop this. Don't make me do it.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. I did have a client one time. It was for like a fitness brand, and one of the models that I used had a sports bra on, and she had this tiny, maybe like the size of a Pokemon card size tattoo of like a naked lady. And somebody wrote in the nastiest email to this brand. It was like, I can't believe you've got the pornographies running on your ads. I was like, what? Like where? Like what? Like is there a photo that like I am not aware of? And no, it was in reference to this little tattoo. You could only see it in one photo. So people are out here just snitching. But yeah, I always keep that in mind with the tattoo culture. Yeah, no, it's a huge bummer. It's like, just let this girl live. Do your thing. Do you find in your work? Yeah. Do you find in your work that some of your clients can be more conservative than others when it comes to subject matter?
Well, yes, in my journey, definitely. But luckily,
Mm,
I've been able to like hone in on my of what I like to do and showcase it. I talk about this quite often because I want to encourage others to share their work along the way, not just their final work, which is something we're going to be doing today. Like I love that that we're doing portfolio reviews because showcasing your work and having feedback is such a big part of your process.
mm.
So yeah, everyone stick around for that. But yeah, I'm saying that because thanks to that, I think I've gotten clients that look at my work and see something that they enjoy in it and they want that exactly. And thankfully, that is what I want to do too. So it turns out really well. So I've had some really great partnerships, some great clients from Behance too. I think some of
Oh,
my
really?
yeah, some of my longer terms clients came from a relationship
That's
on
amazing.
Behance. Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
Congrats.
there's already like such a cool um community that really respects the craftsmanship of design and the
Mm.
long hours that it takes. So I think if somebody's in that space, you're probably in good luck for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome that you were able to kind of curate that. And I think that, especially if you're doing freelance work, like you'll start to naturally over time kind of just veer towards clients with like-minded values, and then that becomes your portfolio. So the more work that you have that's like in that similar vein, people can kind of like assess that this is your vibe, and it starts to weed out the people who like the clients that you have that are just a headache, because that is definitely the side that I don't think people talk about enough. It's like, how do I manage client expectations with a client that's a little bit more challenging? And when you're working for yourself, you know that can be tough because there's nobody to show you this. Like you can get a nasty email from a client and not know, like, do I just do scorched earth and blow this person up via like text right now, or like do I take a second, like how do I sort of navigate that? And I think that that's just as important for freelance work or contract work as any of the techniques that I'll be going through
Oh
today. But
yeah,
yeah, that's
totally.
it's tough. So it's great that your portfolio is robust enough and strong enough where people can kind of like-minded people will gravitate towards your awesomeness.
Yeah. And I think it's, that's the way to go. We got to share our work and just kind of go with it, not let it uh collect dust in a digital folder and digital
Yeah.
drawer. Celise, I love that you're giving us so much feedback here. She's saying, oh, I don't really know if you're she, but okay, they're saying shareable libraries can allow a team to use the same photos and ensure continuity and ease of access to all members, participants in the projects. That is
Yeah,
very, very true. I'm
that's
already
super
using
true.
them for that purpose, actually. Photoshop libraries, I use them so everyone has access to every workable file I make.
That's
Makes
amazing.
everybody
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. That no, that's great. I think for the clients that I have right now, most of them I'm just exporting the things kind of cropped in the aspect ratios that make sense. But it would be cool to work with a client that was a little bit more savvy when it comes to like actually doing the photo editing and being able to work within the space and share stuff. I'm very envious
Oh yeah.
um, of you being in that position. That's got to be pretty fun.
Yeah, it is. It is fun to be able to. Sometimes it's funny to be able to do the nerd conversation and it's back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, PNGs, GIFs, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Have you
that's
have you
true. It's
found on
cool.
your journey, sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt. Have you found on your journey any sort of like pushback or like laissez-faire sexism? Like it's got to be, I can
Mhm.
imagine there are challenges with being female in this space where you're I don't know if you've ever run in or felt like somebody's presuming that I don't know what they know. Like that's got to be frustrating. What's that like?
Oh. Yeah, definitely in the street photography realm, it's very male dominated. So oftentimes,
Is it?
actually, one of the biggest debacles would have been that my name's my short name, my nickname Sin, is not very decipherable as a gender. So I would, that and the fact that my work didn't look like a stereotypical feminine, expression. Oftentimes I was confused as a male artist. So, I kind of, I thought that was something interesting, something notable to understand. Yeah, I definitely experienced a little bit of that. I mean, a lot of that. Not enough that I felt, I don't know, disappointed by it. I mean, disappointed maybe once I honed in onto what it meant. I feel like I'm only now unveiling that, like understanding what the hiccups were there, that I didn't really comprehend along the way. But yeah, being in a male-dominated space, I kind of already knew that was going to be challenging, but I dare say it shouldn't be. But
no, not at all. I'm sorry, but that's been your experience. Yeah, no, that's
kind of
yeah. Yeah. How do you address it? Like, are you frustrated by the times you're confused?
I think one of the best ways, one of the best ways to address it is just continue to not allow like other, how do I say, continue to do my work, because my work in itself is a representation of, I don't have to express myself in a stereotypical feminine way, or I mean, my work is neither feminine or masculine. It just happens to be a true expression of the encounters I had in the street. And my choices in editing weren't always ultra feminine, and yet sometimes they were just as vibrant as a feminine expression, and yet it had nothing to do with my gender. So like, that's an interesting thing, to just continue being you. And then that in itself kind of like, it begins to redefine what a street photographer could be, or in that field. Yeah. So I think that, and not dwelling too much, because it could be a headache. Now that I understand it, I really see the little pieces, and it's like, whoa, that's a lot. But I definitely try not to dwell in it, and just continue to push my work forward. I think that's the best remedy to it all.
Yeah. Forgive my ignorance. What would constitute a feminine expression in street photography? I ask because I sincerely don't know.
Oh, I think like stereotypically it would be like photographing strictly models, or like doing like color palettes that are like, pink and light and super white. It's kind of very abstract, but you just look at an entire color palette and you just see, wow, there's a lot of pastels here, and the expression's a little bit more delicate. There's less like abrupt challenging the order of things, or like I photographed a lot of abandoned places. I did sneak into a lot of abandoned places, but that's like not what you expect a female photographer to be doing. But the expectation is not necessarily true to what actually happens. And that in itself is the flaw. So yeah, just those type of things. Like even in film, I think that robust editing, that kind of like very striking editing, tends to be very, it's also consumed by a male audience. I'll watch commercials, not to go straight too much here, but like I'll watch commercials and I think, oh, I like that product. But then it's not actually aimed at me. It's a male audience that they're aiming for. But it appealed to me because I love nature too. And yes, I love those colors too. And actually that sounded really fun up until it was not represented for me or aimed at me whatsoever. And I wonder, like, is it just the branding, or is it the contents of the product that are not meant for me? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing. So yeah, I think like, I love that you've been considering that in your own projects, because that is a huge game changer. Like that in itself, you have no idea. Maybe you do. I think you're on the verge of it, because that's important.
No, it's it's unfortunate to hear that it's been your experience that some ads aren't for you, but they're speaking to you, and that's got to be kind of alienating and isolating. And especially like, I know for me, like when I'm putting something out there, it's like, if somebody gets this a little, if this speaks to somebody else, kind of, then we're good. But like, if you can, like, if you vibe with me even like 25%, then
Yeah.
then it was for you. And I don't think I've graduated to the scope of work where we've like researched the demographics and the psychographics, and like, this is for
Oh yeah,
people age
totally.
35 and X amount. Like, I wouldn't think of things in those terms, but no, there definitely is that thought process behind, especially bigger, more like conglomerate advertising. And yeah, that can't feel good, because that's the stuff that gets the most exposure, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're in this really beautiful space now of, first and foremost, open conversations, just having that
Yeah,
dialogue out in the open, and then also having brands support us. Like, we're currently in Pride Week, and this is super amazing to be able to like
yeah,
take part of a really cool community that like says I will be me, and that in itself is amazing. And they live among our creative community too. So that's really cool.
yeah. Are there any questions from the chat, or stylistic suggestions?
Morcelin just joined us. He says, "Hi, Sam." Oh, Sam saying hello to everyone. So that's the usual Sam. Sam's always keeping up the chat. And then Sully said, "Hi, Morcelin." And then Viola says, "Happy Pride Month."
Happy Pride Month.
Yeah. Yeah, stick around, y'all, because we will be shortly checking out our artist spotlight of the day, and we're going to be giving some feedback and some insight to just, you know, help our creative fellows.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here are those tattoos I was referencing. The 3 sevens on her right hand.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
so dope. Yeah. But yeah, this area was again just tagged up by, I'm assuming, high schoolers in the area, but
Oh
it's
really?
hard to tell. Yeah. There are a couple of high schools like near here, but this one spot in particular it's very weird. It's like the one abandoned spot in a pretty populated area. And what I love about it is, like, I've shot there before, and it looks like so vast, but really not at all. Like, it's right by the University of Rochester, and then a
Mm.
couple of private schools, and then another few public schools. And but yeah, it's just, you kind of have this like this cone where right from this particular vantage point, it looks endlessly abandoned. And I think some of the high school kids come in here and do the pot and and tack up stuff, but there were none there that day. That's crazy though, that you go to abandoned. Like, I get nervous sometimes. Like, did I hear something? Like, like I'm gonna book it. Like, I don't play around with anything.
Yeah, it's super cool to just like explore a building that has been left behind, and just, I don't know, it's honestly just like the urban living, growing up in urban neighborhoods and just seeing them change so quickly. So it's like, yeah, you have access to things like this, and curiosity is curiosity. And as a photographer, curiosity really drives us forward. It's like everything.
Yeah. No, it's so true that, like, just kind of having that, like, what's like over here, like that gene is, I think, probably like a very
You think it's a
commonly shared
gene?
trait. Yeah, like whatever, or like whatever that predisposition is, you just kind of like want to know, like, what's going on over here.
What's
I think
happening?
is,
Yeah.
yeah, I bet you that's pretty common throughout creatives.
I
Or
know.
at
I
least that would
totally
be
don't
my
believe
assumption.
in that. The curiosity killed the cat. I think
No.
no. That's no. I think
All
that's
right.
like a deterrence. I think curiosity, yes, encouraged.
I think I have enough here to start exporting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I think that there's I don't know if we treated this one. That's pretty cool. Sometimes it just works out. You ever like worry, like, have I spent too much time on this? Like you like throw on a preset and it looks perfect, but have you ever been like you felt inclined to make it more challenging? Like, is that something that you've experienced? I feel that sometimes.
Oh yeah, like it's too easy. I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Hmm. I'm glad I'm not the only one, because sometimes I'm like, man, like I should have to work for this a little bit more. But there are those times where
Maybe
you
that's
just
a
nail it right
thought.
away.
Yeah, sometimes you just, I mean, you probably did work on it for, you create presets, you set up your workflow, and then sometimes you show up and your workflow is already set because you spent all
Yeah.
those days, figuring out what works for you. Like having all those presets really helps. I mean, for me, especially on a huge like event photography, things of that nature, having to do like a bunch of photos and deliver them right away. Like I need those presets, like help.
No, it's so true. I completely agree. So I'm gonna try to organize this now. I know that we gave everything a 5-star. Actually, no, we said no 1-stars. I'll give these all 4s because I think these are all great. Actually, I really do like this expression at first, and I think I want it in black and white. It was, ooh, I think that one. So I'll keep that at 5, and then we'll keep this at 4. She's just so cool. But yeah, I'm gonna export these, and then we'll start playing around. And I'm totally fine
Nice.
with having things have different looks and feels. Oh wow, this is cool. So just be able to have my street sign featured in this at the same time is so dope. And I feel super fortunate. Wow, this looks great in black and white. And I'm gonna duplicate this and also do it in color. And then sometimes, like once I start to go like cropping them, then I'll realize like, oh man, like there are a few frames, like the frames I import into Express aren't the ones that I really need. And so I'll go back and do a little bit more editing. But hopefully I can manage without having to do that for this. The only few things I'm going to tweak here is that the whites are just doing a little too much. But I do want Thurston to be brighter than Congress because that's where I'm from. And you said that you are from Miami?
Oh, I was raised in Miami. I was raised in Miami. I was born in Honduras, so I'm Central American at heart. And I live in Texas now.
That's amazing. I've never been to any of those places, and I feel like I should.
Definitely. Mick Garrison. I hope it's Mick Garrison. Okay, Mick Garrison says AI frameworks, presets, they all kind of make it hard to think you're the one doing the work sometimes. Yep. I have run into this a lot with everything from web development to music production. Yeah, it's like almost too easy. Yeah, I guess that's an applause to all of the software creators because this does ease my process too.
No, it's so true, and it's like you respect the medium so much, like you don't like. I feel this like I don't want to take credit for something that is like unearned, and like I am still to this day reluctant to refer to myself as like a photographer. I'll say like I take a lot of photos, but there's like such a craftsmanship to it that I feel like it's not that I don't put a lot of thought and like a lot of craft into it, but I'm still learning so much and I am self-taught. So it's like, man, like I didn't know what the golden ratio was until 25 minutes ago. So it's tough, but at the same time, it's like that doesn't devalue the work for me. Like I still love it all the same. But I respect that title so much. I just feel like I haven't gotten there quite yet. But
when do you
maybe
think
one day.
you will be able to say like, you know what, this feels about right? Do you have like a timeline or a set of ideas or projects ahead in your pipeline that maybe like will help you accomplish or that feeling?
Man, that's a great question. Probably It'll be a while because like when I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, so I started in 2010, and then I got my black belt in 2019. And when I got it, like I remember with like as it was being put on me, I was like, what? Like I like I haven't earned this. And then I went to there's a like the probably the best gym in the world, or certainly amongst them, is in New York City, and it's called Marcelo Garcia. And they were kind enough to let me come train for a couple days. And whenever I go there, like the first time I went as a black belt, I was like, I am so nervous because everybody's like, oh, there's a new toy entering the arena, and the black belts there are just like leaps and bounds past where I'm at. And so I think it wasn't until very recently where I started to feel like, okay, this black belt makes sense. And so, and I've been one now for just about 3 years, almost 2.5, 3 years. So whenever I get my black belt in photography, it'll be 3 years after that where I feel like it's earned. But projects like this go a long way, just in validating, like, I know I'm doing something right. And that's huge, especially because I think that there are, or I know that there are so many BIPOC creatives out there that are looking for the validation, like that institutional validation. And sometimes I think as Black creatives or BIPOC creatives, we lean on that or look to it or put too much weight in it or on it. And so like I've done projects in the past, and even recently, that are BIPOC creatives giving ourselves prestige. And I think that that's something that isn't done enough of. But yeah, it's a tough balance. It's like you want to be recognized as talented, but sometimes you have to look at like, well, who's handing out that recognition? And that's an internal battle that I also experience. But I think those insecurities are completely on me.
Yeah, validation from a right source and a good quality of validation is worth it, right? But a bad quality of validation, like just getting, I don't know, maybe that's the feeling people feel on social media, that sense that it doesn't feel quite right. That's probably not the right kind of validation.
No.
Sam says, I feel like the AI driven stuff I've used gets me most of the way there and saves a lot of time. Then you have to still adjust things to your liking.
And even if the AI presets or if things are doing a bit of the heavy lifting, at the end of the day, you still have to have great taste to curate what you're putting out there. And if you don't have that, then you can have like the best, like technically best photo in the world and have it still not like slapped the way that something that might be a little bit more technically deficient would, just given somebody's tastes and expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. How many days a week do you train? BJJ? Oh,
quite often. So jiu-jitsu, probably at least 3 times a week. But I'm also splitting time between like MMA training, because I've been doing that since 2011, and then kickboxing, and then just like strictly boxing. And I did jiu-jitsu first and won a bunch of tournaments. So I was like, okay, let's graduate to something a little bit wilder. And then when I started doing MMA in New York State, it wasn't legal here, and so we were fighting on reservations, like Native American reservations, because they have their own jurisdiction. And then we were like fighting under weird like rules and regulations, and it was very, like, looking back, it was wild because like I didn't even have health insurance, so it was just crazy. And then after I had some success doing kickboxing and MMA, I kind of fell into doing traditional boxing. And I love all of the combat sports so much, and so I competed as a traditional boxer as well, and now I'm here. But yes, I'm constantly trying to keep up to date with all those. And then I started CrossFit and Olympic lifting to impress my wife when I met her, and that never happened. But we're married now, so the joke's on her.
Celie says they're very impressed that you had like anything to do with Marcelo Garcia. It's the best grappler. Really cool.
Of all time. And when I met Marcelo, There's like a photo of the two of us, and like you can tell I'm like one frame away from like if it wasn't on camera, I would have kissed him on the forehead, because he's such a like a lovely human. But yeah, no, I was completely like nobody noticed me. Like I'm not a standout whenever I go by any respects. I just I love that place, and they're so generous to let somebody like me from a small town come in and try to learn from them. But yeah, I
Sam
get
says you
pieced
keep
up every time I go.
Sam says you keep a really busy schedule. How do you manage?
I am very passion oriented, and so if I'm into something, then it doesn't feel like work, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Oh wow, I got very lucky with this.
Oh, I
And
love that. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I can relate to that completely.
yeah. I like if I am doing something that I'm not passionate about, it's a disaster. And so now that I'm kind of working,
It's
or
a
now that I have been
disaster.
working, it's a disaster. Like if I'm not feeling it, it's like it is the absolute worst, and like nobody enjoys it. But if I'm into it even a little, I'm into it a lot, and so time will fly by. And I love jujitsu a ton. It's very like I have pretty severe adult ADHD, and I really value moments where I can be present, because most of the time I'm kind of like it's like I'm clicking on different tabs in my mind's web browser, and I can't control how long I'm on a page. But when I'm doing things like jujitsu or stuff like this, it's much easier to slow stuff down. And so I think
Yeah,
that a lot of my love for martial arts is like you have got to be so present, because the consequences for not being are wild.
that's
And
so
I think that just
interesting.
yeah.
Finding your ways to be present. I mean, on a direct like level of having a difficulty being present.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
very tough for
cool.
me.
Yeah, design
Um,
could do that. I mean, photography does that for me too. It's really,
mhm.
really like I cannot photography, reading, writing, any of these things, I cannot multitask. I just
Do you
gotta
read often?
be there. Yes, yes. I'm
What's the
reading
latest read?
I'm reading a book. It's called Anatomy. It's a fictional book. Um, it's funny because it's a bit morbid and a bit of a love story at the same time. There's like
Mm.
two heroes. There's a hero and a heroine, and every time now I pass by a cemetery, I'm like, oh wow, I see this whole fictional story now, as opposed to being like, oh, that's so sad. I just think, whoa, that's where my book takes place. It's hilarious in that way. I never thought I would be like, oh, that's cool. I love sci-fi books most of the time too, like as an outlet. But biographies are really cool too.
What's a good biography? I bought actually I don't know if I've made it known. I should pull it up somewhere. Yes. Hold on, just one second.
Oh, sure. And for those of you who are just joining us, thank you all for joining the chat. By the way, I love the conversations we're having. We are, I think, at the point of exporting some of the Lightroom
Yep.
images, and soon we will be reviewing a artist spotlight. So that's super fun. And then we're going to be moving on to, I believe, Adobe Express. Am I correct?
Yep, we will be doing that
Yeah,
very shortly.
cool.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan of The Bachelor and Bachelorette. And it
Oh my
happened
God.
in a very roundabout way. When I did work at an agency, one of my best friends who was in the agency worked in the PR room. And to my knowledge, I think everybody who worked in there it was maybe 9 or 10 women, and they had like this fantasy draft of the contestants on the show, and I would go to hang out with her during lunch, and I just got so tired of not having anything to contribute that I started watching it and then got hooked. And so
Oh,
ever
wow.
since, yeah. And so my latest biography is the Matt James uh, biography from a few seasons ago. And
That's
yeah, my
hilarious.
wife was like, "What did you just order on Amazon?" And I was like, "Listen,
Yeah.
Matt James has a story, and I'm here for it." So
Well, I
yeah, that's
watched the entire like coming out Colton. That was really, really interesting to me to watch somebody coming out to so many people. He was a
yeah.
former bachelor
Yep.
also.
Yeah, I
Um,
watched this season. Um, that I watched the first episode of that show, but like I said at the top, I'm the worst at keeping with stuff that I even find compelling. But I did find it very interesting because it's that dynamic of milestones in your life is so foreign to me, and so I try to be as interested in it without like fetishizing it, if that makes any sense. Like I want to be respectful of my level of interest, but I do like I am very curious as to what that's like, because that seems like it could be a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And then also at the same time, kind of intriguing to that phenomena of reassessing who you are and inviting others to get to know you.
Yeah, I would. It's my hope that for everybody who has that experience, that it goes well, or that they don't really even need it. Like I can't imagine. Like my wife and I, we just had our first back in February, and I can't imagine caring about something like that. Like I hope, like if those are feelings that she has, that she's comfortable with just expressing whatever those.
Oh wow! You just had a baby.
Yep.
Oh wow! Congrats.
Yeah, she's 4 months old. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, wow. Being a dad is wild, but it's something I'm very grateful for. Yeah, she's learning how to yell this week, and it's very cute.
She's learning how to yell. That's hilarious. I guess we learned that.
We're off. Yeah. She gotta put her down,
says,
so she would.
Your life sounds amazing. You seem nice, and most certainly deserve to be in the position of happiness. Oh, that's the kind of chat that I love.
So much.
Thank you so much.
So generous.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
That is, thank you. I definitely feel grateful. Right when I graduated from college in 2010, it was like the housing crisis. It declined, and so I graduated with a B English, which was essentially useless, and was more or less, I was like functionally homeless for a number of years, and I didn't ever get out of it. Once I did, it was okay. Like I will never take anything for granted. Like I remember the first time I bought like that winter jacket for an adult, and that was in probably 2017. And I remember just being so grateful that I had like an actual jacket. And likewise with like a mattress, like I didn't have one forever. I slept on, the floor for so long. And then when I bought my first mattress, I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like I'll never take this for granted. And even now I still don't. And so to hear comments like that, it's, it reaffirms my own gratitude for things.
Oh yeah.
Being absolutely. Able to get out of a situation like that.
Yes. So, it's a love month.
All these,
so
it's a love month for sure. That. So all these have exported. Awesome. I'm going to go here, and we will do a new project, and we'll do an Instagram post.
And we are about 7 minutes away from doing the artist spotlight. So you're welcome to kind of get going here. Just giving you a little bit of time.
Yeah. Take your time. I'm gonna pull up this folder. Let's see. This is the inspo for this shoot. These are some photos I really dug. I love Alonzo Harris from Training Day. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But yeah, I love that whole vibe. I love Denzel.
Alonzo Harris.
Yeah, from Training Day. He's Denzel's character. I love that movie.
Yeah, Denzel in general.
Denzel's just the coolest.
The coolest. We should pick up a biography. Maybe he has one.
Oh, that's a great point. No, we definitely should.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will did this. Here we go. So yeah, when I like drag and drop, let's see how responsive this is. Yeah, perfect. So sometimes it's just a matter of like, I'm always reluctant. Like there's a very easy feature to just have a photo become the background, but sometimes I like playing around a little bit and not having it like tethered, if that makes any sense. And you'll see me kind of play around with this, like the zooming, or like how much space it takes on the screen, because sometimes I'm trying to like approximate what it will look like on the phone by zooming out. So I'll literally like just hold my hand up, like, okay, like this is more or less what it will look like. And it's always a good reference point for me to do when I'm in the midst of working, because I can completely get lost on stuff like that. But this was
I'm
a
really
photo that we created
curious.
yesterday.
I'm really curious for what you do here, because honestly, I have not delved into this program a whole lot. And I'm just looking at the interface alone, like, whoa, this is interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I love it because it's pretty approachable. I don't know if there's any sort of portions of it that you have questions about off the top, but if they come up, like, please feel comfortable to ask. But you can
Oh
start with
yeah,
a
you
bunch of
got it.
templates, which normally, like, I think for my own branding, I like cleaner. And then there are times where it's like, okay, like I've been so minimalist that my feed starts to look a little samey, and just for like my
Mhm.
own like ability to feel diverse, like I'll change it up. So there are definitely times where, just like with the preset in Lightroom, I'll start with a template and just design away from it, just to have that launching point.
Yeah.
And that there are so many are great. And I have a template that's public for people, so they can. It was designed so that people could share their challenges with fitness,
Mm,
and
cool.
because I think I was trying to think of like, we'll share your workouts, but I didn't want anybody to feel discouraged, because challenges are such a relative term, and so I didn't want somebody to feel like, well, this needs to be me working or doing something inherently impressive globally. I wanted it to feel more local to them, and so whether that's going for like a 2 hour walk, or doing 100 handstand push-ups, whatever that is, I wanted people to feel equally encouraged and proud of their work. So there is a template on here that's by me, but for now, I love going into the logo section. And when you're in, you can have your own like brands, or a subset of brands. And so I'll export logo work from Illustrator as like a PNG, or you can even save it to the library, and then access it from there. I do not make the best use of the libraries from or the libraries feature in the Adobe Creative Cloud. And a lot of times like I said, I'll end up exporting things as a PNG with a transparent background. But for this, I am this will be a conflict for me, because normally if you look at like my Instagram or any of my other pages, I tend to go with just my basic dark slide logo. I'll hide this for now. So you can go to the layers panel and shuffle the order, and you'll see me do that a lot. But a lot of times, like I'll try to keep it simple like this, and because like I just love that. And you'll see me like I'll download and export this as it is, and then I'll probably try it again with like a different layout. But because I'm live streaming today and kind of on the clock, like I want to make sure that I vary it up at least a little bit. But there are so many cool features here in Creative Cloud Express, with having design assets where if you want to have a little bit more texture, or brush strokes or frames even, that all of those are at your disposal, and they're super easy
Yeah.
to get a grasp of.
Yeah, like that accessibility, I think is really
Mhm.
like major. Um, yeah, Silly says that AI has been greatly helping them, and can say that it has been an amazing not to do much of the tedious stuff. Yeah, that's true. A lot of
For
things
sure.
can take up a lot of
Yeah.
time. Uh, I was just gonna say we're gonna get started on the artist spotlight. So if you
Okay.
care to share that with us, I'm excited to see what we got here.
Yes. So today's artist spotlight is Neil Kremer. I believe that's their name, and they've got an awesome profile here on Behance. Is
Ooh.
it showing through for everybody?
Yes, I see it. It looks cool.
Yeah. No, I'm like awestruck by the colors here, and he's just got this polish, or they've just got this polish that I'm very envious of. Even like when you click on some of the foreground and the background, like being able to frame people in this way, I'm very envious of. Like I feel like I never have a look that's equally clean as something like this, where it's very painterly, but also still natural. Oh, I don't know if you've I love the
Whoa.
Twilight Zone. Yeah, so
This,
this is
oh, is this what
there's
the
it's
reference?
a reference. Yeah, it's a reference to an episode of the Twilight Zone called Eye of the Beholder, where there are these two people who are in surgical masks the entire episode, and they're like, "Oh, we've gotten surgery to make you less hideous because we just no one can stand the sight of you." And then at the end, they like undo the gauze, and they're like the two most beautiful people ever. And then everybody else is they look like this, and that's the plot twist at the end. So, spoiler alert
Oh,
for an
wow.
episode of the Twilight Zone from the '60s. But yeah, this is really cool.
Oh,
Yeah, that's super
a
trippy.
lot of
Um,
manipulation.
yeah. Oh, Blake Griffin.
Oh, can
I'm
we see
very
that orange one?
yeah.
It says it's
This
been
is
featured.
this is
Oh,
next level. I'm very like this level of production is this is pretty staggering.
yeah, and
Wow.
a lot of play with color palettes, and I think that's really interesting. A lot of primary, not necessarily primary, but really cool color palettes. I'd say the rainbows color palettes at this moment, but it's really nice to see like even down to the wardrobe how everything has been pre-planned.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. I love things like this. It's not necessarily like something you find, but maybe this can also train your eye to then look at the world and these color palettes and start to kind of find it around there if you're not so
Yeah.
interested in studio work. But I do see some outdoor work there too. Um, that one looks cool. Yes. What do you
Yeah,
think
this
about
guy's
the skin color retouching here?
I love it. There is some I'm assuming like a lime like mid-tone or like an undertone to it. Um
Yes, I see that.
yeah, but you still have like a great amount of texture within the skin. You know, this is inspired for sure.
Great. It's so inspiring to find similar artists and seeing like work that the execution on their work that has their own fingerprint really.
Yeah, it's so polished and very envious. But yeah, look, I think I was talking about it yesterday, like where there are photographers who can like schedule and ideate and then execute on something very
Mhm.
specific, like a high level of accuracy. And I am so awestruck by people who can operate in that capacity because I like whatever that is. Like I just like I said yesterday, I just discover stuff, and I try to find it in the moment. But this
Yeah,
is
this
you
is
can
this
tell like
is it seems to be targeted towards campaigns, advertising campaigns. So I can see how
yeah
that could be a standard of work. But I really do see a lot of variety here too.
yeah.
Because I think I saw like a photo shoot in nature, some work indoors. Oh, I actually know that model in the middle.
Oh,
Yeah, she's a model in
it,
Miami. Cool. Oh, I love this color palette here. This one's like
yeah.
green and orange.
As a
Yeah, I
boxer,
like
one thing that always go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say the shadows don't need to be just rendered black all the time. It could just have that undertone of a color
Yeah,
hint. I think you were doing a
yeah,
little bit of that on your work too.
I'm awestruck by it. One thing I always look for, especially when it comes to like martial arts and the way it's photographed for larger campaigns, like you'll see people hitting the heavy bag with just hand wraps on them. And I've never, in all my years of fighting, have ever seen somebody do that in the boxing gym. And I always find it funny when that occurs. But no, this at least this portfolio was devoid of that trope. Oh wow, okay, this is super cool.
Oh,
Wow,
gotcha. Kind of stay more authentic to the actual sport. Yeah, that's cool
yeah,
to notice that. Because I
wow.
mean, somebody who knows will notice that. Yeah.
I'm sure that you see stuff with rock climbing all the time where you're like, that is not how we do things.
Oh, when you see it in like action movies, yeah, in action
Yeah,
movies, it looks so silly. You're like, wait, how did they get there? That
yeah.
can't. That doesn't seem right. Um, I think it was a movie recently. I forgot what it was called, but it was like little kids doing the most like dangerous stuff. You just know someone's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are
Oh,
also
can I
cool.
see that one that says environments? That looks really interesting.
Oh,
I think it's
we're
at the bottom row. I mean, are you going down? I can't tell. One of the last
trying to.
rows. One of the last rows. There you go. Above the motorcycle guy. There you go,
Okay.
that one.
Wow.
Environments. I love that. Houston liquor store.
That's breathtaking.
Yeah, that's really pretty. Oh, and then this one looks drastically different in the editing.
Mm.
And I guess was that elephant actually there? Seems like a composite. It seemed like an environment for an elephant. Curious to see the behind the scenes. You're making me curious already about your workflow. That looks like Joshua Tree. It's incredible, like the kind of places that we have on this earth. Sometimes they seem so sci-fi, and I realize, wait, hold on, they actually exist.
Yeah.
That looks like awesome. Santa Monica.
I've never been.
Oh, really? It's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that was the first place I saw the ocean.
Mm.
That was, the Pacific Ocean.
This is amazing.
I know, I love work. Hey, wait, hold on. Let me see that one with the fishing.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Wow.
It's really beautiful. I love the scale of it. And that person looks like they're fly fishing, so it looks even better.
Yeah, this is all amazing.
Yeah, a lot of variety here. I mean, congrats on keeping up so much, looks like, energy to the 1000 level. Like, there's so much variety here, and so much the differentiation between the color edits too. So that's really interesting to see. Right, there's like very polished, and there's some that are a little bit more freestyle.
Yeah.
The person's shorter.
Yeah, I think most people are than Blake Griffin. I think he's 6'7", 6'8".
Oh, really? Whoa.
Yeah.
Must be nice. Or not. It's always looking
or not.
down.
Yeah. If you're on a plane.
Can we see that first one with the apple? I think that was cool.
First one with the apple.
Yeah, it was the very first one.
Oh wow. Just that
yeah, using those gels. There you go.
This is really cool.
I love how playful it is too. Wait, they're throwing a TV over a balcony. Yeah, definitely composite. Let's hope.
I love Ben Schwartz. I love John Ralphio. I just think that character from Parks and Rec is so funny.
Oh, really? That's where they're from? Yeah. I had no idea. Yeah.
That's one show that John Ralphio did. But yeah, I think that he's so hilarious. Cool. Yeah,
a lot of really cool collaborations. Yeah, good for you.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you guys have any recommendations on artists or fellow designers or yourselves that you would like to recommend, definitely drop them in the chat so we can check them out. They might be featured on the next Artist Spotlight. Really cool.
Yeah, I would love to watch. Wow, this is really cool. So they did shoot on like a seamless, and then, all right.
I think we have time for like one more, and then we can jump back into Adobe Express.
Yeah, of course. Let's check out.
Let's check out the cowboy.
Yeah.
Oh, for Ford. Wishes for Toyota. Oh, it's so dreamy. I love using that as a foreground. That's a really good trick to just kind of give your photos more depth. having a foreground element in your composition.
That's really, really clever.
Yeah. And
I'm
it's
learning
not like
just by looking.
Yeah, this is kind of what I was referring to earlier too, of each brand should be then gets treated independently for their personality. And you could just tell for Ford, they didn't use gels, they didn't use an overuse of editing, because they're probably keeping in mind the Ford brand personality.
Yeah. No, that's very insightful. You definitely can feel that, to your point.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So yeah, bouncing back into Express.
Yes.
You'll also see me kind of, so like I like when I have, like when I go to post something, especially on like my feed, I'm a huge fan of having like a carousel of 4 or 5 different photos, just because it's like a mini gallery, like a tasting, if you will, of something that might be in a portfolio elsewhere or on my Behance profile, where it's a little bit more robust, but just to give like a sense of the work that I'm into. I love having like a similar look. And so sometimes what you'll find is that I will upload, like we'll pick my favies from this album, which I think are probably safe to say represented here. And I'll upload them all at once.
Yeah.
So and I'll try to keep
the composition within this program. Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. So so obviously I won't have every photo all at the same layer, but I'll want the logo, like I'm very particular about having the logo in the same place in the carousel. So like I don't want the logo to be here for the first photo and then here for the next one. For some reason that just bothers me. And so what I like about it though, like sometimes like if I decide this is where the logo is going to be for 5 different frames that I share online, I end up having to do some problem solving when it might work for this one right away, but maybe when I blow this one up to a size that I'm a fan of, like if I just had it drop and center, it may not work as well as I would like it to, but I kind of just stumbled into this working actually. Like I actually am a fan of this. But yeah, it's very easy. And then even like if there were still some effects that I wanted, like say I didn't just spend the last however long treating these photos in Lightroom, there are some light enhancements that you can do within the photos or within Express. And sometimes it's actually helpful, even if I have done some color grading, like the logo, like maybe I have like a lighter background and I'm using this, it's not exactly white, it's some off-white. I don't know if that shows through the stream, but I'll want to darken the photo just a little bit so that this logo stands out a little bit, if that makes sense. So yeah. I love having these tools handy right away, and you can turn them on or off. They actually do allow for different blending types, which I am very surprised by. Normally in programs like this, having like the multiply or the screen feature isn't an option, and maybe we can play around with that a little bit in the time we have left. But yes. Normally I just go for something a little bit more straightforward. And then lastly, they do have some filters of their own. I love the the duotone, where you can kind of switch between like what are the main colors. Yeah, it can get pretty trippy. But yeah, I'm a fan of
that's cool.
Of stuff like this. Yeah, like so even just by selecting that, like now you've got a very different look and feel. And this reminds me of like the like Miles Davis had like those Blue Note record covers back in the nice. 60s. And yeah, you can kind of like stumble your way into something that has that same look and feel. So, and this isn't the only filter that they have. Like I love having matte colors, but sometimes that can be tough for me to get to in Lightroom, or I'm not really sure of it when I'm in Lightroom, and then I'll see it here, and just being able to toggle back and forth really quickly between a bunch of those effects is nice. And again, if you're shooting on your phone and editing on your phone, it can be a pretty cool feature as well.
So you can edit, you can use this in your phone also, like so you have
Yep,
a
there's a
mobile
mobile app.
workflow. Cool.
Yeah. And you
That
can
makes sense
schedule to,
too. It's more
yeah.
on the go.
Yeah, for sure. But what I like it, so am a guest instructor at a local high school in the city, and we've been going through the Adobe suite, doing like a project on storytelling through apparel design. And so I worked with a group of 7 seniors to just ideate, well, let's put together a mood board in InDesign, and then let's take that mood board and try to capture that look and feel in a logo design, and then do that logo and place it onto a garment, and then get that garment made, and then have a photo shoot, and then lastly work in Express. And it's really nice because a lot of those students can't afford a laptop or a desktop that can run the entire Adobe suite gracefully. And so to be able to outsource that processing power into a program like this and still have a lot of those same tools at your arsenal is I think I can't overstate how nice that is, especially for me, because I'm a huge proponent of the democratization of skills and assets, and this speaks to that. Sure.
We are unfortunately running towards the end of our stream.
Yeah.
But we do have a few more minutes if you want to go over the best places for everyone to find you, to continue your journey within this amazing space that you're working on, and to find the final work, perhaps let us know.
So my Instagram at KESA_design is probably one of the places where you can see me, and then my Behance profile as well, which I think is featured, would be awesome. Any follows on there goes a long way. I love that environment so much. Everybody's
Creative
so positive and so encouraging, and likewise, if there are any comments on works that I have on there, it would go a long way. I just recently, I think this week, I had an editorial of my last 2 seasons of apparel and the inspiration that went behind it. Yeah, and I liked it, but it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So I spent another 100 or so hours adding onto it, and it has really kind of consumed my life for the last 6 months. But this kind of walks you through it walks you through a little bit of things that have spoken to me that I've tried to incorporate into my journey as a creative, without being too on the nose. Actually, here's my lovely wife. She's the best. But I had some products, and I wanted people to kind of see where that came from, but again, not being too direct and letting people come to their own conclusions, but juxtaposing inspiration and then the end
really
result,
awesome.
and letting people kind of come to it on their own. But this was something that was very near and dear to me, and I've poured, like I said, hundreds of hours when it's all said and done into every level of this. And it's not often where you see a project where every step of the way is handled by one person. And so in a lot of ways, this is the most personal expression I have professionally, and I'm very proud of it. So check that out. Leave comments on it if you can.
It's almost like seeing the tabs you were referring to on your mind, being able to see that mood board and seeing your process. It's really helpful in general for people who are also in that process. How do I make this work? I have so many ideas. It's the hardest part.
It can be super tough, but hopefully there's enough of a visual congruency where you can go, okay, here's a frame from West Side Story, and then the next one, there are some similarities, even if it's just the window coloring in the background. But this is one of my favorite movies ever, and it's always in the back of my mind when I'm working on stuff. And it was really challenging to try to incorporate something I'm so passionate about into my own work, and then putting that out publicly for people who don't know me to respond to. And so that was the idea.
I follow you on your profiles for sure. Thanks for sharing your work with us. Mike says, wow.
Thank you.
So I think you already have folks who check out your work, and that's super awesome. I love hearing all the support.
Yeah.
For those of you who didn't get a chance to join us today, remember you can still revisit the replays on Behance and also on YouTube. And in the meantime, stay tuned for a Pride Week themed week of creative challenges ahead. I am your host, Sin Lagos, and thank you, Toren, so much for joining us. This has been so much fun, honestly.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Again, I can't tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity, and it means a lot. It's not lost on me.
Yeah, and finally, if you want to be able to share your work with Toren, do you have a place that you would like for them to connect with you most preferably?
Yeah, DM me on Instagram, that works, or follow me on Behance and send me a message there. I think it's linked with my email address, and I'm constantly checking both. So whatever works for you between those two places works for me.
Motivoid said, very stylish indeed.
Thank you.
Stylish, I think, is the right compliment you want. Anyhow.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, the stylish. I try to put a ton of thought into everything, and hopefully that even if you don't like what I'm doing aesthetically, the thought process or the thoughtfulness of it still shines through.
Cool. So I'm just gonna share. Ooh, I think I exited my program here. There you go.
Oh, did you sense?
Yes. Yes. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. This has been super fun, and a special thank you to everybody who has been on the chat, just communicating with us and giving us some feedback and some love and support. This has been a lot of fun, Toren, and hopefully we stay connected because I really want to see the rest of your journey along the way.
Yeah, likewise. Let's stay in touch, and I'm very eager to see what you're working on.
Yes. Thank you.